Can I have a large cup with a lid to go
Of course.
with coffee in it?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your Sensei Al Bob. I'm on the Bob. And going out and visiting folk. Mm.
Didn't know if you needed creamer, but I brought you some extra just in case.
More napkins, though,
Sure.
because it can be messy.
That's okay. That's yours. I'll be right back with napkins.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so oh, there's AI. Hello, AI. Thank you, bud.
Sure.
So, are you going to school?
Yeah, I just graduated my undergrad at JMU.
Oh, what's your undergrad?
Special education. So interdisciplinary studies. They have
Right.
a program where it's like a 5-year master's.
Right.
So I'm doing one more year for grad school.
Not a good. And then after you finish that, get a degree in your master's in social work.
Oh, I have heard that, yes.
Because that is the golden degree. You can do
Yes.
anything with that degree.
Very true. Very true.
With the undergrad that you have, and then the master's in the education thing, and then that,
I'll be solid. I'll be set.
you are solid. You are set.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, baby. So, 2 minutes. There we go. So, I'm heading. I first went and visited some friends in Blacksburg. They had a number of COVID deaths in their family, and they're not quite sure how to deal with it. So, I visited one. On my way back home, visit the other. And one was a middle class, working class black family, and the other is a upper college administrator, white, privileged, and two of his kids died. He doesn't understand why kids would die. Well, all you have to do is look at Palestine, or Syria, or Iraq, a war that we administered in Iraq killed 1 million people. All the babies who were dead in Libya. When Muammar was Prez, he gave everyone a house, education, health care, food, job. He drilled, Libyan crude is the best oil there is, right? It gets more a barrel than regular oil, right? And, Perfect. So, the real question is, what is life about? Yeah? AI, what do you think life's about? Hmm. Let's see.
This is Macy.
Look at this. This is what I used to call a zombie nightclub. Abandoned lot, an abandoned building, an abandoned neighborhood in a portion of New York City that was abandoned. And this is a guy named Julian
I
Schnabel.
don't think so.
And he was just starting to make it big in the art world. And he was part of Collaborative Artists,
I just
Um,
checked in the back, to be honest.
along with people like Kiki Smith, Judy
No.
Ripka, Keith Haring,
Yeah.
John Bowman,
Okay. Bye.
and a host of others. And so, why did we do what we did with Collaborative Artists? Because, as you can see, it looked fun, right? And we had community, you know? Here's Anna. Anna was from Denmark, and she was an interesting person, and she always pushed the envelope a bit, and she was one of my electric helpers. She died of AIDS, you know, at the age of 25, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. And, you know, this was in the days when you got AIDS, ooh, man, people just cut you right off the list, right? You might catch it. They sneeze on you, you know?
Awesome.
I'm a good time to go to.
Okay, what would you like?
I'm at that.
Okay. Awesome. Sure.
Yeah, they got pretty good food here.
Yeah. Really?
You eat here often?
Yeah.
Yeah, this place has good coffee, good Wi-Fi, and a meal that you can at least not get sick on and can fill your tummy. And you can afford it. So, did you grow up in this town?
Pardon me?
Did you grow up in this town?
Yeah.
So, what's your take on this town from when you started thinking about that? Like, why did you stay here?
I've been in all 50 states at least once.
Huh.
And on the other side of the world a couple times.
Were you in the military?
Yes. And I love the Rocky Mountains, but this is Roanoke Valley is a well-kept secret as far as a place to live.
Thanks,
Just
Anthony.
getting
Southwest, how can I help
It
you?
is pretty good. I just drove in from the south up 81 from the real mountains of Tennessee.
Mhm.
And I live between the Appalachian and the Blue Ridge.
Right.
And that's what I call the accordion, because it's Sawtooth Mountains. There's two mountain ranges, kind of squeeze that thing. So the mountains do this.
Right.
So there's a lot of up and down. And so I came from there. And once you get on 81, you can get the big view, whereas where I am, there's no big view. I'm in a holler.
Right.
But you can get the big view. And what's really interesting that people don't really notice is how the sky is no longer blue. It is gray.
Right.
And it's, pollution plus everything else, right? And it just goes along with the whole how people don't really appreciate or even see anything. They're so twisted up in their
Oh, yeah.
whatever they're twisted up in.
These damn cell phones have ruined their society. I hate it.
Well, I'm a social scientist and I got more degrees than a thermometer, which shows, meaning I got really sick about 8 years ago. And so I was at the pinnacle of what I used to do. Then I got sick and couldn't do it for about 5 years. And then I called my clientele up. They said, "Oh, we all thought you were dead." Oh, gee, thanks. Not quite. And then they all told me that I was replaced by an app.
Hello?
These damn cell phones.
Yep.
They just passed a law in Virginia that as of the 1st of January, you cannot drive and hold
A cell phone in your hand.
everything damn.
Because you can Bluetooth it to your car system and still be just as distracted without holding it in your hand.
I witnessed a wreck last Tuesday on 221 going up that mountain. These two cars, one driver was on the cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
They hit head on, 50 miles an hour.
Holy moly!
Both of them went to the hospital. I don't have any idea what happened, but it's all because of the damn cell phone.
Right. I used to back in the early '90s. I was at Cornell in Ithaca, New York, and I was a volunteer fire department guy because I moved in this neighborhood that wasn't quite in Ithaca. It was like Vinton is, not quite Roanoke, right? And I was across the street from a firehouse that I didn't know what it was because it was facing back. I didn't see it, right? I kept seeing all these pretty girls go in there. And I went over and say, "Hey, girls, what is this place?" "Oh, volunteer fire department." And so it was like 60% women. And these girls were hot and loads of fun. And our house was right where two interstates, and they didn't do a clover leaf. They just did this.
Right.
And so every week, a big truck was running over a small car or a guy on a motorcycle. So we saw the worst horror. It was like war.
Right.
And we would see 2 or 3 of those. The other thing was, it was a retiree, like a assisted living place. But it was so, it was like pathetic because they had trailers. People were in single wives, and that was assisted living, Somebody came around with a peanut butter jelly sandwich. And
Oh, boy.
so a lot of these people off themselves because it was mostly old guys, and that's all they could afford. They had a gun. And so, maybe twice a month, we would have to go into a place where the guy redecorated it with a shotgun in his mouth.
Right.
So those were our things that we usually went to. The 3 years I did that, we never went to a fire. We trained, we were a fire department, we trained for that, but it was cars and suicides. And these girls we would party like it was 1999. We'd roll in after a really bad thing, and we just break up the booze and the bud and just turn the stereo up. And so it was. I learned a lot of good things. I learned, I was the medical guy. I went to the school for that. How to do lines and do all the real medical stuff, right? So did that. And that was good. And I learned about fires, and I learned about a lot of stuff. It was really a good thing to do. And at that time, New York State, if you were a kid in high school, and you joined a public fire department as a volunteer, you would get sent to a state college of your choice for free.
Oh, boy.
They don't do that anymore.
Okay.
and the volunteer fire departments don't exist anymore because of it.
Right.
You know, but it saved like $1 million or two somewhere, and so they cut it out because no one could vote them out on that one, right? But if they said they didn't like this flag or didn't like that thing, wow, we have the best legislators money can buy.
That's the secret. The money.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Abe Lincoln was assassinated, because 2 weeks before there was a bill in Congress that was going to give corporations the rights and privileges of individual citizens. But because they're corporations, they didn't have any legal, thing to pay for. And he said, over my dead body will I let this go down. And 2 weeks later, he was dead. And Kennedy said the same thing. And 3 weeks later, Dallas.
Right.
So, and the American people are basically brain dead. I used to teach in school, every kind of school there ever was. And what's going on now, passing this education, is a joke. Now, these things, they're okay. They're like a hammer. They're okay as a tool, but not as a lifestyle.
Right.
So that's why I live in that place, because I get no internet, no TV, no radio, no cell, no satellite, no nothing.
Okay.
And I am there most of the time. And I come out when I'm needed. And, so what did you do?
I was a horse trainer for a long time.
Oh.
And I was a car mechanic for a while. I've been farming the last 20 years.
Those are all good trades.
Right.
I grew up in New York City, so I didn't know, which end from a horse, right? When I was living in New Mexico, and I was living with a Hopi elder, and we were going to go see a sacred site, and the only way to get there was to ride a horse. So he sent me to his son, who had a big horse ranch, and his grandsons were charged to teach me how to deal with a horse, right? So they thought it was funny, so they gave me the wildest, craziest horse there was, right? I went there and I saw them trying to train the horse, and of course the horse didn't want, a bit in its mouth, and didn't want this and didn't want that, and it'd be really nasty to these kids. So I watched that for a day or two, and I came out one day with an apple that I cut up into quarters, and the carrot I cut up into a bunch, and about 10 sugar cubes to see which he liked, right? And he liked them all. So I came back later in the afternoon when it wasn't hot, and again, did the same thing. He liked that. And then I got him really cold water, like from a stream, but good. And I brought him a bucket of water. He really liked that because nobody gave him any water. So I went in there, and that's the first day, with the carrots and the apples and the sugar. That afternoon, I went into the ring with a bucket of water and more carrots and sugar in. And he came over, he saw I had a bucket of water. I put it down, he drank that whole, he was thirsty, right? And then he kind of looked at me like, okay, you don't seem like a real jerk. But so I gave him that. So I had a brush, and I brushed him down. He really liked that. And I said, okay, I'm going to take you into your sleepy time place. And I just had a little rope. I didn't tie around his neck. I just kind of draped it around his neck. I didn't tie it. I just held the two ends and said, come on. And he just went like a dog, right with me. And that's really what I found, that horses were smarter, bigger dogs.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm a dog boy, so that's how I was treating him. So the next few days I did that, kept brushing him. And the next day I put a blanket over him, right? And he was okay with that. And then what is that belt that you tie around their stomach.
Oh, the cinch.
Yes, yeah. So I put the blanket on him and a cinch on him, and I let him walk around with that, and kind of tugged on it and pulled it, and took it off and brushed him more. And so by about the fifth day of doing that, I brought a large couple of boxes, wooden boxes, like steps, so I could get on because he was a pretty tall horse, and I got on his back. Just got on his back. We didn't ride or do anything. I said, and I was a lot thinner. I was a big guy. Probably weighed 170. Anyway, he didn't mind me up there, and I had the brush, so I made the excuse of getting on his back so I could brush the top part of him.
Right.
And he knew what I was doing. So anyway, by the end of the week, we were riding around. And I didn't put a bit in his mouth. I just kind of held on to his mane and said, okay, this way, this way. And that's the horse I rode into the wilderness with.
I've told so many people a horse is just a giant dog.
Yes.
Personality,
Yep.
same disposition, but you can ride them.
And they are a bit smarter
Oh, yeah,
overall.
absolutely.
I mean, everybody, there's a big gradation of everybody. It's like humans, we're stupid as a brick, And everyone thinks we're hit the height of our humans right now. We're the smartest we've ever. No, sorry. Humans have been around 1 billion years, and we've had high civilizations all through them. And they've come and they've gone.
Right.
And they had technology, Did you ever see the movies, the Star Wars movies?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I had a teacher. His name was Joseph Campbell. And he was a great historian, a great philosopher, great anthropologist. And George Lucas sat at his foot for a whole year and just took notes.
Right.
And all of Star Wars came straight out of George Lucas's mouth. He had a book called The Myth of the Hero.
Uh-huh.
He said, there is no such thing. No one guy does. It takes a crew to do something,
Oh, sure.
right? And did you ever see Jason and the Argonauts? Or read the book? Or
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Saw the movie years ago.
So that's kind of if you really you read the Greek play, it's a story about a guy who accomplishes amazing things, but he's got a crew, and they weren't just swabbies. They were all great at what they did. They just went along with him because, okay, let's do this, right? And it was supposed to be like a few months. It took 40 years to, right? And each of those places that they visited and had adventures, they learned something, right? And it's basically how to get along. And what people don't realize is that a very small group runs the planet,
Oh, yeah.
right? And it's not the deep state or QAnon, none of that. Those are all just excuses for people to get in each other's face. Because the only way that really small group of people can get what they want is by keeping us screaming at each other. We have more in common. I mean, I'm an African American that is melanin challenged. I grew up in Harlem. So, and it's just amazing how people let themselves be taken down the primrose path.
Herd mentality.
Yeah. Well, there's that. But again,
Hitler's a good example. It never surprises me when somebody comes up with something crazy.
right,
But how the hell to get over these people following?
right.
Hitler's a prime example.
Yeah, but see, all these morons are poster boys, meaning they're people behind. I mean, Hitler didn't do that stuff. There were all these guys behind him, and they had a big plan. And part of it wasn't for Germany to win the war,
Right.
meaning Germany was bombed in the Stone Age, And we brought 70,000 Nazis into our government. Wernher von Braun being the most visible one.
Right.
But in every avenue, in every part of our government, into state governments, into media, into banking, into education, these Nazis, we brought them in.
Mhm.
And they have turned us into them.
Right.
And they are going to do to us what they did to Germany. And I used to, there used to be a church, I used to try and organize, there's 600 churches in Roanoke. 600. None of them work together.
Right.
And that's I went in to try to get them to work.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of churches that say they're doing, help the young kids, help the needy mothers, no, they don't, they get money for it. They write grants, TAP is a good example, TAP. And Goodwill. So when I died and came back and was really sick for 4 years, I helped Goodwill write a whole bunch of grants, right? And I kind of, I had to walk with a walker until I went in there. And I said, okay, I could use some employment. And said, well, we'll have to train you. I said, and so they went and through. And so, have you have any education? Oh, sure. You went to grade school? Oh, yes. Did you, high school? Oh, yes. Prep school? Best prep school there is. College? Oh, about 20 colleges. I got about 15 degrees. And they were like, and they were just typing it in. They weren't even thinking of it, right? So the woman got, well, we're going to train you to unload trucks. And I said, lady, I am 68 years old and I'm walking with, I got these metal clamps on my legs and I'm walking with a walker. I was thinking, maybe teaching or, being a, social work. I do have a master's in social work, and none of these people had a degree in any of the stuff they're doing. They just got it through their connections of whatever. And one of the ladies, so this one woman who was spending her whole time playing a video game while she's supposed to be talking to me. And I just started saying gibberish. And then she kind of, huh? You look like an elephant. Your ears are so big. Your nose is like a trunk, and she, you look like a skunk. You smell like one. I started until she kind of, what are you saying? I said, what did I say? What was I saying? You tell me. She got I can't work with you. And so she started screaming. And her boss came in. And her boss was a woman I knew because I got her job. I said, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. I said, what do you mean? I have no money. I'm next to death. What do you mean? This is Goodwill. You're supposed to have charitable Christian heart. Well, it says right here, we had to train you to be unloading trucks. I said, oh, so I guess I really did pick the right person for your job. Yes, you. And that's Roanoke. No one works together. Even the black communities don't work together. And so they get very easily picked off.
Right.
So it's like really, because everything about this country since 1492 has been a scam. So you still work with horses?
Oh, yeah. Just about every day.
Out there in Bedford?
No, I live up on Bet Mountain. We buy young horses, our folks to ride.
Mm-hmm.
Buy them cheap, and once you get them riding, then the price goes up.
Yep, exactly.
Enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, buddy. Good hearing from you. It's always good to
Okay.
a real cowboy. How many are watching? Anybody? 5. There's 5 of you there. Anthony. Replaced by an app. Yep. That's why I'm living out in the woods. this person came out, and there's an easy way to get to my place, and then there's the death highway, right? So the she came up the death highway, and where she thought my place should be wasn't there because the woods were still there. I didn't cut that part out. I put my place on my property, but over here. She had to come on the Forest Service Road, and she got very upset because she stopped, nearly lost her car on the death highway. And then she tried to climb through the thicket to get to my place. And she was wearing high heels. Anyway, so she goes, "How can you live in it? It's such a terrible place out in the woods. Oh, it's terrible." And I took her on a little tour of why the woods are so good. I showed her, Ellen Campaign and Golden Seal and Burdock and Dandelion and all my other friends. I showed her the mushrooms. And once I showed her the mushrooms, she said, "Oh, you could make a lot of money out of just taking them all." I said, "No, you can't take them all. You just take what you need." Anyway, so what's shaking, Anthony? Tell me what's on your mind. I was talking to the cowboy. He seemed like an interesting guy. Boy, that was good. Everyday people. Okay. Yep. The electronic world is going a fizzle. As I said before, I think the internet is going to go bye-bye by July 4th. So everyone's car won't be able to work. An X-Square or something like that. But whatever they call it, and then the pandemic is not over again. Not over. Desserts, which my famous cinnamon cookies. No. What I had was more than enough. See, then you don't need any more. Just what's enough. Just think if we all had a life that we just used what was enough. How can we best prepare to meditate and pray? Now, first off, by example, if you were meditating and praying, your meditations and prayers will have an effect on everybody out there. So that's the first thing. Meditate and pray yourself, right? And pretty much be there. I'm a total moron, and so without God's love and guidance, I couldn't accomplish anything. So before I go into any endeavor, if I'm brushing my teeth, well, I don't have any teeth. Whatever I'm doing, like I had to get on the road, so I had to close up the house, do this, do that, make sure, my garden is doing pretty good. So I had to make sure that would, be okay while I was gone. So I'd sit and talk to it and say, don't worry about it, I will return, So that's kind of what it's about, is that when you are connected to all your relations, everything, from microbes to the stars, those are all our relations, Take nothing for granted, you know. Be thankful for everything, in every way and every day, and how it is. Uh, So that's the thing, because you can't really, I tried, Anthony, go back and I don't know how long you've been part of Dreamy Dreamland, Anthony, but, I used to do guided meditations that were pretty strong, that could, and that was my little idea was to, deal with issues by being a shaman, through the internet. So um, that was part of the problem. It didn't quite take off. I mean, so a lot of people kind of appreciated it, but that's as far as it went. So um, by example, that is how we can have the biggest so you went into, so you've been around back when I used to take people into their Akashic record and go look at their Akashic record, right? So so what did you get out of that? Were you able to take, I mean, every morning when I wake up, I have tremendous pain. I meditate, I pray, I go into state. Within half an hour or so, I'm good to go. I get up, put my shoes on, drink my tea, and walk out. And all the birds, don't try, do. And my Yoda was a guy named Joseph Campbell. So anyway, how long have we been on? Oh, about 40 minutes. Well, that was yummy. So, Anthony, what did you see when you went into the library? And were you able to evacuate all your angst? Yep. Okay. Well, it's about time for me to go, gang. It was a real pleasure. I'm going to be in and about places that have Wi-Fi, so I'll probably try and do one of these every day, right? And I'll maybe do two, one in the morning, one in the evening. And if I'm going to spend some time with John up at the school. That's where I'm heading now, and hopefully he doesn't throw me out immediately. Hopefully I can stay there for a few days, because I have a lot of doctors I'm going to go see. I have my good doc. I have good doctors in where I'm in the deep green, but these guys have a little more money, a little more access to technology, etc. And I might be able to get a pair of orthopedic shoes out of them. So I really need them. I've had them before, and they really make a big difference, because once you're walking in the right way, your hips don't hurt, your knees don't hurt, your ankles don't hurt. And when you're just wearing crappy shoes you get from Goodwill or a thrift store, so I mean, I do the best I can, and that's and again, Anthony, that's all we're asked to do, our best. No one's perfect, especially not in this mud puppet persona. So, but talking to God all the time, and that's and God's always listening, and you're not supposed to look for signs. Your conversation with God is like you will feel what you should be doing, right? And that's where you go, and then you test, how righteous that is. So anyway, I think I'm gonna go when it's 40:40. Anyway, so I love you, and I'll try and talk to you tomorrow morning, sometime between 10 and noon. Okay? Okay. Okay.
Did you get this one? I might just have to repair these.